So there's a technique that I had developed when we was doing those raps in San Francisco, which I carry to this day. Because Left and the other guy in the group, they were so much more advanced than me in rapping. Like we would go in there to record songs, they would write their verses very quickly because they were more advanced. And I was just so slow. So what I started doing is we would go there and I'd be like, oh, y'all, let's go get something to eat. We would go to Stonestown Mall, and we hanging around, hollering at chicks or whatever. I would be composing bars in my head. So when we got back, I would at least be like 4-8 bars ahead of them so I could keep up with them. And then that's how I started developing writing in my head, So by the time you fast forward 6 months or however when it was when that battle started, I kind of was like, okay. So they would announce like before the next round, okay, Locksmith, you're going to be against MC such and such. And I'd be like, okay, this nigga got some dirty shoes on. You know what I mean? So I start accumulating the rhymes before I would have 4-8 bars already ahead, you know what I mean? That I would just kind of, and my memory was good at doing it. So I was just like, okay, I know I'm gonna have this. I know this is gonna hit. So so that's how I was able to fare so well. So I end up not winning the battle, but I end up getting all the way to the last round with me and another dude. And the other dude ended up winning, but I got so much recognition from that. Like I remember Davey D being there, just all Bay Area, Rob Reyes from M1 Promotion. Remember Rob? All these, maybe even Chewy might have been there. A lot of people, Bay Area people was like, yo, this cat, I was getting people's numbers. People was like, yo, hit me up, producers. I was like, okay, y'all, we in this Bay Area shit now. Like people, we officially, pretty much everybody that's doing rap in the Bay is starting to know about me, at least me or us, you know? And that was kind of like, we got thrown into the Bay Area stuff,
This conversation is tripping me out because I almost feel like
there's a lot of branches.
There's a lot of branches, but it's like, I think you're a little bit older than me, but there's still like a lot of nostalgia here.
Yeah.
And it's making me feel like, man, there was more shit popping before the internet.
Yes. It was more, because that was the only way you could do it.
It's the only way. And now
open mics,
it's
battles.
like everyone's in their own little bubble where you're just on the phone and you can still exist and be popping in your own little space.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about of, all the people who really matter being under the same roof.
Yeah.
And multiple times where that's happened. And then just shit like that, like the Source coming out here to host a freestyle battle. And that don't have the same, and I know that excitement of like, oh shit, this is about to go down. We finna show up as opposed to like, oh, there's a flyer on Instagram. I like the flyer. And
it definitely was more, community, like to a certain extent. Like you wanted to get into these communities so you can get opportunities. Yeah. And you was and in the midst of those communities, you start building relationships, which would open other doors. So it has its positives and its minuses. I think the positives that I get to carry from that era is because it built up a callus of being in front of people.
Yeah.
So when I go on a radio show with Keise, rest in peace, Sway, or any other place, I was built from that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel foreign for me to be like, okay, rap. Like I built up the callus to be like, okay, I might have a little anxiety, but I'm used to that. Whereas if you only are just rapping in front of your phone or in front of your thing, there's no pressure.
And that's true because you see a lot of these guys who have a hot buzz or a viral song and then you go see them live and they suck.
Their back is to the crowd. They don't. Back then, the only way you could get noticed, you had to be able to do it live.
Wow.
And that still translates today because the things that I do now that I lean into, that I use to promote my brand and my music is the fact that I can do things that a lot of rappers don't have that skill set.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit, I can do that all day. I can rap in my car. I can rap on the radio. I can do that because that's what I came up doing because you had to do it. Yeah. It was a necessity. But that was the thing, man. It was definitely dope, man. And then that, there was another Source battle that happened maybe 2 years later. And then that was really like the whole Bay was there. So by this point now, that's where we meet Mr. Fabulous, who would be Mr. FAB. You know what I mean? But back then, he was Mr. Fabulous. You know what I'm saying? And that's when we end up connected with Mr. Fab and Gary Archer. This is when he was on his, before the Thiz, you know what I mean? When he was just doing his independent thing. That's when we start hearing about Clyde Carson and the team, you know. So I want to say this is probably like 2002.
Right.
You know, 2002. Maybe 2001, something like that. Once again, I go up there, I'm battling people. People start like, yo, this kid Locksmith is dope. This kid Locksmith is nice. And you seen all around, everybody from the Bay. If you rap, you was there. Know the Piper, Lil Larry from the West Oakland. All those guys was up there. Who else? Everybody who was a rapper was there, you know? Even if you wasn't rapping, you was there, you know? So it was just dope, man, to have everybody out there. And yeah, it was a community, bro, but it was tense. Everybody wanted to win, everybody wanted, but it was respect, you know? And it built those battle scars that, you know.
It's an exciting time for the Bay Area.
It was dope.
At what point does EA Ski come into the picture for y'all?
So,
and if I'm skipping ahead, feel free to.
Yeah, I'll go back a little bit. So, like I said, that thing at the that second source battle, we meet Mr. FAB, we meet a bunch of other rappers. I want to say, damn, now I'm just remembering now. I think Fab and he was working on Nig Latin. Fab invited us to his video shoot. I remember going to his video shoot. And we're working on, at this time, Frontline is just 2 at this point.
What happened to Hot Lips?
Hot Lips moved.
Okay.
Moved. So me and Left was like, all right, well, we got to keep pushing. Like, what we going to do? We still had him on some of the songs, but we need to finish the other songs. We was like, all right, we just going to do 8 bars a piece on the last verse. You know what I mean? And we're compiling our first demo, which would be our first album, which would be called Frontline, the bootleg album. We put that in Rasputin's. We go to Balance. Everybody knows Balance.
Balance was the buyer at Rasputin's, yeah.
Balance, I had already knew him because we were doing ciphers and stuff with Balance. We were doing little shows in Berkeley and in San Francisco. We meet Balance. Balance is like, yo, I work at Rasputin's. Y'all want to put something in? We'll do it on consignment, blah, blah, blah. So we raised our little money to put our album together. I think it might have cost us like $800 to press up our first, you know, it was a little more expensive back then. Maybe first 200 CDs, it cost like $800 or something to press up. And we went to Balance, and Balance was like, hey, if these sell out, I'll buy more, sell them for this amount. But I know we made enough money to pay back my sister or my mom who loaned us the money to press up these CDs. Put like 50 in Rasputin's or 100 in Rasputin's. We had 100 ourselves to pass out, give it to people. KMEL starts having these battles on the radio.
That's with Big Von,
Big
right?
Von.
Yeah.
Mr. Fab is on there. Various other artists are on there.
Killa Keise.
Killa Keise. Shout out to Killa Keise. Rest in peace, right?
Yes.
You know, rest in peace, Killa Keise.
Clyde.
Shout out to Selski.
Mm-hmm.
The team is on there freestyling, and everybody in my crew, Balance, Left. We're recording at Poor Man's Studio. Now we're recording at a real studio. We're recording at Poor Man's Studio in Richmond. I'll never forget. They was like, yo, Lock, you need to get in that. You need to get in that. I'm like, I don't know. I was kind of still shy a little bit. They was like, nah, you need to get in that. You need to get in that. I'm like, all right, fuck it, let's do it. Balance hits up Rob Reyes, because that was, I think, the only person we knew that had a connection to the radio station. And Rob had already knew me from the battles, from months earlier when I was doing the source battles. He was one of the people that came up to me like, yo, your shit's dope, you know? So Rob was like, oh yeah, that kid Locksmith, bring him up here. He brings us up there. So after the battles every week, Vaughn would have the next group of MCs or group of rappers come in and like just cypher, spit like, 16 or 8 bars or whatever. And when I got on there, everybody was like, ooh, you know what I mean? I think everybody, I'm gonna say Rick Rock was up there. That's when I first met Jack, you know what I mean? The Jacka, Hustler. I want to say, I don't know who else, maybe AP9 was up there with him. Yeah, so it was a few of them up there. But we get up there and everybody came up like, man, yo, Yoshi, you was spitting, bro. You was spitting. And Von was like, okay, next week we're going to have the Locksmith up here, or maybe the week after that. Yeah, because the next week was going to be Fab and Clyde Carson. So at that time, Clyde Carson was up there murdering. He was just murdering the ciphers. You know what I mean? He was just, and Clyde kind of had like an East Coast. So we respected Clyde. You know, we had already heard, I want to say his demo. I think Balance had played it. He was like, yo, this dude's spitting. Like, you know what I mean? I think he was getting production from, forget the guy name, from the East Coast. So, and Fab was doing his thing. Fab had Nig Latin out at the time. I want to say, yeah, it was out. And Fab was, you know, connected, you know, Gary Archer, they was doing big things. But I ain't gonna lie, and this is no disrespect to Fab, and he proved us wrong. I just assumed that Clyde was gonna beat Fab, because Clyde was more like on the lyrical type shit, but Fab was a better freestyle, and Fab had no fear. So when they went up there the next week, Fab won. I was like, oh shit. In my mind, I was like, I was already gearing up, prepared for, you know, for Clyde, and Fab, you know what I mean, end up taking care of business. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, I gotta get ready for Fab. I just wasn't expecting that, you know? And then we end up battling. I end up winning and end up winning for like several weeks. And then I really, but I was always shouting out Frontline and playing Frontline songs on the radio.
Okay.
You know, because if you won, you got to play a song. So my whole goal was like, I want to win these battles so I can play our song. Because I felt like, man, if people hear our songs, and Left is doing all the production at this time. So Left is producing, we rapping, and we had a song called Workout, you know, and that was kind of like the song that people liked the most. So we would play that every night after the battle. And then I want to say people like Rick Lee and My Emotion start playing it in the mix. And I want to say even Scotty Fox will play it in the mix at night. And we was like, okay, we popping, you know what I mean? We up.
Recognize where you got the game. We got our own style, got our own slang. Northern California is a West Coast thing. This is the history of the Bay. Recognize where you got the game. We got our own style, got our own slang. Northern California is a West Coast thing. This is the history of the Bay.